There's like a lot of talk about AI taking over the world and robots taking over the world. In fact, every time my friends reach out, they're always about, are you training the robots to take over? But I think that the angle that we wanted to look at was not just the industrial robots angle, but high value humanoid that can help remind us of our fundamental human emotion, that's empathy. Getting robots to, dance and do the hand manipulation navigations is hard. Teaching them empathy is harder.
Hello, I'm Dhillon, your host, and today on your AI injection, we'll explore empathetic humanoid robot design with Dr. Niv Sundaram, Chief Strategy Officer at Machani Robotics. Niv has earned a Master's of Science and PhD in Electrical Engineering from my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and leads Machani, quest to deliver companion robots that provide round-the-clock engagement and emotional support. Their flagship humanoid robot RIA is already enriching elder care, autism programs, and clinical workflows. Niv, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Deep, so good to actually meet you again. Last time we, talked, we were together at our alma mater in Madison.
Yeah. For the audience's benefit, Niv and I are both on the strategic advisory board of the ECE department at the University of Wisconsin, and so we got a chance to meet, which is when I got to find out about all of this really cool stuff that you're doing. I think what would be fun is if you can just start and try to visually describe the robot so that we understand what it is we're talking about.
I wish I actually had the robot do the intro because that's the best part about working in a robotic actual humanoid. It's not exciting to demo a laptop or a server. The humanoid, and the demos catches everyone's attention. But the big picture, why we are on this mission, sounds like a cliche, but we want to bring back, empathy into the world through AI. There's a lot of talk about AI taking over the world and robots taking over the world. In fact, every time my friends reach out, they're always about, are you training the robots to take over? But I think that the angle that we wanted to look at was not just the industrial robots angle, but high value humanoid that can help remind us of our fundamental human emotion, that's empathy. Getting robots to, dance and do the hand manipulation navigations is hard. Teaching them empathy is harder.
They're getting pretty good at it. Like the anecdote I'll use is my wife has taken to chat, using ChatGPT like everybody else.
Yeah.
But the thing that she sort of keeps coming back to is she loves the empathetic responses and the cheerleading and the championing that ChatGPT does. Everybody's experienced this. If you kind of wind up on an ideation session or something, the tone that the OpenAI folks have used is really this one of kind of championing, motivation, and support. And tell us maybe a little bit about what do you mean exactly with respect to empathy? Because I think you mean something different than these disembodied voices that we either talk or chat with, right?
Right. 100%. We've done, I would say, significant market research to be able to conclude that having a physical embodiment for the humanoid builds better trust than ChatGPT for aging populations, vulnerable populations. There is a screen fatigue that you get. We actually did a test where we had a screen with an avatar next to the screen. And then, we got the people to talk to both the screen and RIA. And I could tell that, it's not just me, but professionals, reading the body language and all that, they could tell when the person was a lot more engaged because we are so wired to humans, to human-like form, to a physical embodiment. A screen is just a screen. I feel that the physical embodiment makes a difference.
It makes sense, right, when you talk about screen and text input, and that comparison, but there's audio, which it feels to me like gets you pretty far. And everybody knows the difference between texting with somebody versus
Right?
on an audio call, because you get a lot of that emotion in the voice and you get that hands-free aspect. You can be on a walk or whatever. So what do you think is the difference between the audio ability you get? Because there's a few things shy of humanoid, right? Like there's audio, there's screen
Video,
embodied,
visual.
yeah,
Yeah.
visual, like screen embodied stuff. There might be something else I'm missing, obviously chat, but like, how do you characterize all of those, and how do you think about the physical embodiment piece, the
Right.
three-dimensional with the skin and the eyes and all of that?
Right. Great question. I mean, we spend a lot of time. So there's the physical aspect, and then the emotional aspect, and I'll walk you through what the pipeline looks like. First, there's when Ria is reading you, she is like getting multimodal inputs, right? Like the cameras, 4 key cameras that are like analyzing your facial expressions. Audio input is getting the tone, and so once we get those inputs, then there is a emotion classification system internally that actually determines, based on like these inputs, what the emotion actually is. And then based on that emotion, she is mimicking a response with the behavior. And that again is very mechanical, right? Like there's like the actuators, but in fact, like just the head alone has about 32 actuators, and these are her muscles. So that emotion comes on her face, the actuators move, and we are giving commands through the emotion classification to be able to give the response back. And so that empathy and that tone of voice that you see is that.
Maybe let's start with humans talking to humans first before we
Right.
get to humans talking about. So
But
like two humans sitting there talking to each other. I think the phenomena that I probably noticed the best is if you just study the sheer dysfunction of social media interaction, you've got the whole world screaming and yelling at each other on, I don't know, Twitter or X or whatever we call it now, or threads. And there's like all this like anger and like hostility. And you almost never see that in the physical world, right? Because humans have some kind of wiring for like emotional recognition. And most of us don't really want to throw kerosene on the fires of emotion. So we have this like dissipating thing we do where if we start talking politics or something that, and we notice the other person starts twitching, like the vein in their neck starts twitching,
right,
we start
right,
dialing it back and changing it and generalizing it. And,
yeah,
but that is something that absolutely does not happen in the internet today for the vast majority of cases. And so we wind up with a world that's very like dichotomous. Like the physical world, you could walk down a street in America and think everything's fine. You enter pretty much anywhere on the internet and you think we're all about to murder each other. So I'm curious, what your take is on that.
it's a very deep question, right? I mean, and that's the reason why we have like neurologists, on the team and on
Uh-huh.
our advisory board to be able to like understand human psychology. And in some sense, Ria is a care aid. She's not replacing a caregiver, but a care aid. I would almost say, just like your wife was saying, that she feels that ChatGPT responses to be a lot more cheerleading. You want the robot to be that empathetic companion and to be like that positive minded person that's, your personal cheerleader. I would want her to continue being that aspect of the human in the
Well,
humanoid.
let's talk a little bit about your context, because I don't want people to think that your comments are generic the way we think of ChatGPT used in a
Right,
myriad of
right.
scenarios, right? Yours is used in a very specific scenario where that compassion is like the most
That's
important
right.
piece. So
Yeah.
talk us through the scenario. Like, where is RIA used? What's the goal of RIA in that? I mean, to make it boring business context, to make it human, like
Yeah.
in that human context.
Yeah, so primary focus, I mean, we want to get to in terms of like having your own therapy bot. I mean, that is the ultimate roadmap to have like a RIA in your home, in everyone's homes. But we're starting with what we call vulnerable populations that have a higher propensity towards loneliness, seniors in our society, kids with special needs, healthcare, and all of that. So what we're actually means the pilots that we're starting with very specifically focused on memory care, senior care centers. we're almost disrupting, memory care. Not to say anything about how it's been done for many years, but I mean, cognitive therapy, a lot of it is just sorting out socks and doing Sudoku puzzles and all of that. And medication, of course. So we've had so many brainstorming sessions with our neurologists on the team to figure out how we can have RIA as an aid to, medication. For instance, in a senior care facility, someone that's diagnosed with mild dementia or going towards a memory condition, when we know that this person is getting anxious or going to a bad situation, RIA will use calming voices. A big part of the therapy that we're working on is live therapy. I mean, we have different problems with labor and all that in the US, but when we go to senior care facilities, a lot of their feedback is that the caregivers that they have don't have the same cultural backgrounds as the residents. They're from different age groups, so they also have interracial backgrounds. I mean, even simple things like eye contact. Because in some cultures, like making direct eye contact is not a thing. So they run into issues like this. They don't relate to, okay, I went ice fishing in Wisconsin, when I was a boy. The caregiver is not going to remind you of those during the cognitive therapy. So that is what we are training Ria to do, getting these lifelines.
Stories. Like a life story for a particular patient or something.
Right, from their family, and like pictures, and like, that's the thing with a robot, right? Like it's very easy to scan and like set this context, and once this context is available, she's able to then use it to customize the experience for each resident. So that is one of the big areas where we've been like seeing breakthroughs, residents having a much more richer experience talking to a robot.
For those who don't know, I think I'm going to just take a crack at describing RIA, and then I want you to correct me where I'm wrong. But RIA is like, it's like upper portrait section. You've got a head, it's physical, but not a full body. Like no, I don't remember if there are hands. I thought there were no hands.
There are hands.
There are hands. Okay, so hands, but no legs. Why don't you describe her? Yeah, describe her physical attributes and what she looks like. What's the skin like? What's it like to be the hair? All that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the skin is made out of like silicone, and it's very human-like skin. The original IP came from Disney. Go to one of the parks, you'll see it, how it looks. Right now, she doesn't have hair because we, want her to look like a robot. And then there is the torso. So we 3D print the torso with hands. We deliberately want her to be a robot. So she doesn't have legs. She's on wheels. So wheelchair based, so it's FDA approved. So we're able to, move around facilities and all that, and chance of tripping and all that is much less.
So she's actually like roaming through the assisted living or nursing home facilities and talking to who she wants to talk to or something.
Right. I mean, right now there's a handler. It's almost like a video game console you can use to move around. I mean, we don't do it automated because it's still early days. Eventually, it'll be fully automated.
Got it. So she's roaming around, she's interacting with residents, she's got some vision recognition to figure out who she's talking to. She loads up their personal profile. Do they ever want to take her with them to their room and maybe fire up an iPad version of her, or where she's no longer embodied in the physical, but in electrons on a screen? Does that ever, are you thinking along those lines, or are you like, no, it's all, oh, you are, okay.
Yes. So that ecosystem is absolutely what we're working on. In fact, in a few months, we will be releasing the software version, the RIA avatar version for phones and tablets for exactly this purpose. We're still having RIA at centers. I mean, even for kids with special needs, they're at the center, but then when they go home, and we still want to have the same experience.
And most of the system is still at play, right? Maybe you don't have 4 cameras, you have 1 camera. Maybe you can't read as much spatial depth into the emotion map that you're building, but you can get quite a bit from a video camera. And then instead of the physical actuators in her face and her arms and hands, you're exercising the actuators in the 3D model or something like that.
Right. That's exactly what we're thinking of. Like maybe we should hire you as the design.
We're always for sale. We're Zionics. At Zionics, we're experts in transforming your complex data into actionable insights. Whether it's through natural language processing, computer vision, or predictive analytics, we tailor AI solutions to bring innovation to your organization and make your products much more powerful. Don't let your data overwhelm you. Discover more at xionyx.com. That's XYONIX.com. Why don't we nerd out a little bit and talk a little bit about, let's start with the sensors. What does the physical bot see? What does the video camera, the iPad version or whatever see? And how do you define the emotional map? Like, you got a time series signal, you've got face. Do you like objectify the face down to like eyes and eyebrows and nose and do like a higher level puppetry kind of response, or is it like pixel level? Maybe walk us through the sensor and then we'll move into the electromechanical and the, in the simulated version.
Yeah. We're still early days. I mean, we ideally would love to do the whole thing, like create a digital twin, do it in simulation. So from the hardware, initially we were using Internets and real-sense cameras for depth sensing, but now we've actually upgraded to the NVIDIA Jetson. So still have like 4K cameras for facial recognition and 360-degree microphone array because we want her to have like one-to-many conversations.
So she can spatially adjust and like build an audience around her.
Right.
Wow. Okay. So you have like full
Because
spatial audio input.
yeah, because we want to be able to exactly that.
Come in, like join this group, enjoy,
I mean,
like.
we haven't touched on uncanny valley yet.
Oh no, we're gonna get there, don't worry.
I mean, you want her to be as human as possible. Like when two people are having conversation and third person joins in, she has to be able to at least like hear.
So we'll come back to Uncanny Valley. Do not worry, I will not forget, because that's like at the top of my mind of whether this is a good thing, a bad thing, a creepy thing, a great thing, like, or, or all of the above. So you have a lot of these signals. So you have the multiple camera signals, you have the 360-degree audio, maybe, do you have like binaural, like in-ear mics or something, or?
Yeah. I mean, there's also proximity sensors.
You can't be wrapping it around that.
I know.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the hardware. Like, what are you doing on the unit? What are you doing in the cloud? Are you doing the imagery analysis? Like, do you have GPUs in Raya and you're doing a lot right there on site?
Yeah. So, I mean, even those senior care centers, we want to be doing a lot of edge processing and not cloud. I mean, that is exactly why we've been doing the hardware upgrade with the Jetson, and probably also the form factor helps us, right? Because like it's not a human.
Yeah, you can put a lot of, but you do run into the problem then of the more complexity you build into the bot itself, the more chances something goes wrong and you can't just fix it without having to physically touch it.
Right. And I think the other big challenge that, we've run into, everybody wants it to be 24/7. And for that, you need a 12-hour battery. Batteries are not there. So, I mean, we are doing some.
By that, do you mean that people don't want her to go charge for a while?
Right.
They don't, that's not okay. Like, it just sounds a bit like, the image in my head is the robot from the Jetsons who was the maid. Rosie, I think her name was Rosie.
Rosie, yes.
Yeah, because she used to charge, I think she used to go charge for.
Right.
24/7 seems unrealistic. I mean, nursing home residents, they go to sleep. So, I mean, it seems like you could get a few hours.
So what we're working on, we continue to have night nurses, but during the day, we'll be able to like take shift, reduce the burden. There's all kinds of like very specific logistics that we have to deal with, right? Like when we're wheeling a robot through a closed door, then now we're going to open the door, and the doors have to be automatic to be able to do that. She's not going to be able to open a door handle. So those are future problems. We want to do that in the future.
Got it. And what does she do in the cloud? Like, is she uploading and persist? Like, what's the philosophy? Is the philosophy do the lightweight collision avoidance, the mandatory stuff on device, and then do the heavy lifting and the deep reasoning and the conversational stuff up in the cloud? Or
it's definitely, I would say, the pace of innovation, right? Like with AI, I mean, it's all of the models really a lot more sophisticated. So what we've been doing is using therapeutic conversation patterns and memory data patterns to train LLMs. So we've been doing that. Also working with speech models. Most of that, we are able to get away with doing stuff at the edge. But somebody comes along and then they want to speak Hungarian or something like that she hasn't done before, then we have to go fetch from the cloud. I mean, as much as possible, we're trying to like not do too much dependency.
I
Maybe
so, she's on Wi-Fi. She's got backup to a nice 5G cell connection, maybe even two of them. I mean, at the cost of the bot, that's all feasible. Because like it seems to me like you're not going to be able to compete on reasoning ability if encapsulated in a physical body like that compared to the hundreds of thousands of GPUs that you can have in the cloud or millions. And the latency is always going to be an issue. So it seems like the thinking that's not essential for not running over residents should be happening in the cloud. I would probably argue in the cloud, but like, what are you seeing? Is it hard to move all the data? What's the bottleneck with moving? Because I would probably push for moving more of the reasoning up to the cloud, not less.
I just think that the infrastructure of the centers needs an upgrade for
Uh,
us to be able to do that. I mean, that has always been a bottleneck for us. The luxury centers, like they have their own IT department and all that, but like living in memory care, that's like more middle age. There, we have run into like more infra problems because I'm used to work with data centers and cloud, and
yeah. Have
so
you thought about
that
just work like having backups that you control, like a
yeah.
cellular backups, or is the problem that they have like MRI rooms or something like that where you get shielded?
Both. It's also just, I feel like there's a mindset of being able to use the cloud. In fact, the university campus that we're working with, they were having issues with even giving us Ethernet ports. I found that to be surprising. So definitely part of it is infra and also the data. There is incredible amount of data that comes out of it. And the data privacy issues have not been completely sorted out yet.
So let's go back to the sensors because I want to walk us all the way through the flow. You got the sensors, you've got the spatialized audio, you've got the cameras. So your next goal is to produce some kind of emotional map.
That's
So,
right.
so what is that emotional map? Like, is it multidimensional? What are on the axes? Like, how do you think about it? Like, is it, things like, I don't know, a happiness axis? Like, yeah, walk us through that and then walk us through the modeling process. Like, what are you using for training data? Are you using some public repos or have you guys getting your own training data? And then how do you map it into that state? And are you doing that every second, every quarter second, every
I'll go back to what we do with the emotion classification, all that, and then we'll talk about the timing. I mean, usually it depends on how much the processing time is, right? But like within 200 milliseconds, we want to be able to get a response. That's usually like it's in milliseconds. So step one reanalyzes the facial, the micro expressions, vocal tone, body posture, and even like thermal signatures, right, through the sensor array. And that is multimodal when that comes in. In general, we have a time limit. So once that data goes in, we have about like 200 milliseconds or less than that. That's our time limit. We're constantly working to improve that. The emotion classification system that identifies the emotion state and context. And so today, the empathy framework is static because it's easier for us to test all these different features. I mean, sometimes it's like we take it so much for granted, right? I mean, how do you recognize like tears of joy versus like tears and distress? So things like that, when we are trying to like figure out the tone and like humans sometimes like, when we're laughing, we sound like we're crying, or when we're crying, we sound
Yeah.
like
And sometimes
very,
we are subtle. We send out mixed messages,
right. We
right?
send
Because
out mixed
there's all
messages,
kinds
right?
of weird words we
Yeah,
have in the
yeah,
language, like
yeah,
sardony and
right.
sarcasm and all that. I'm sort of imagining looking at some plots that represent the emotional state of a face. What plots am I looking at? Like, would I be looking at anger on the x-axis and eagerness on a y-axis and maybe a z and maybe a few other axes and you're trying to throw a point in space or something? What does it mean to represent the state of emotion of somebody that the bot's looking at?
Right now, it's a table. So the emotion classification array is a table. So it's like a three-dimensional array of exactly what you. I mean, because we are getting multimodal, right? We're getting like voice, tone, then we're getting like no, actually five. Body posture, and then like micro expressions or thermal signatures. So it's an array. of like where. So that's what I was saying. It could be an LLM model in the future, but right now it's an array where it's a static array where we're actually getting these inputs and then mapping it to the emotion that we are recognizing.
Oh, so you'll map it to a word like
Right.
happy,
That's
sad.
right.
Okay.
That's correct. That's
And
correct.
then that's what you act on is
Right.
that
Right.
textual mapping or
Exactly.
symbolic mapping.
Because once we have those, the software that we use is like what Disney used to use, like Blender, because it's an animatron, right? So once we get the map, once we get the exact emotion, that is already trained and tested. So we know that, okay, actuator 137 has to be enabled for this emotion or something
Well, okay,
else.
let's talk about that next. Okay, so now you have this her short characterization of the person, Rhea has this of the person she's looking at. And she says they're agreeable, they're smiling, they're nodding, something like that. Now, that information has to get mixed with whatever Rhea just said in the history of conversation to formulate not only the textual response, but the actuator response. Like I'm gonna like smile and nod back. I'm going to move my eyebrows, whatever that is. Is that right?
Yes.
And how do you do that step? Like, how do you get from those textual characterizations to the actuator characterizations, and like, where does that training data come from, or?
So a lot of that, I mean, we actually have trained emotional models that we use. Some of them is like custom, some of them is based on public data sets. On therapy, on like kids with special needs. In fact, MIT has a bunch of data sets on social interactions. So we use that to be able to like train the LLMs. I mean, that is that leap that we've been able to have. Like, so I mean, the big reason why we have been able to do so much with humanoids in such a short time is entirely because of Gen AI and LLMs.
So on the
Because
yeah, on the LLM front,
it's
you're doing something like, hey, I'm talking to somebody. These are the emotions that they're indicating. This is what they said. Here's our message history. Generate the response and maybe the emotions that I should use to convey it, something like that. All from like
that's right.
a fixed universe. And then you have the mapping of that to the actuators, so that you might have like straight emotion mappings to the actuators responses or something like.
That's right. We have straight emotion mappings. We would not be able to like do an angry sad. The
Uh-huh.
emotions are very, very specific. That's the best we can do today. But we want to be able to do a mix. See, it's a static mapping. That's the reason why it's this way. We
It's
need to
more
keep
like
dynamic
puppetry.
mapping.
It's,
Yeah.
it's more puppetry oriented. So Rhea's not going to win an Oscar anytime soon, but it's a
We're
good
hoping
first
to get
step.
there.
What's
Yeah.
that?
They're hoping to get there. That
Yeah,
should be
yeah, but you need a more nuanced representation of the actuation at
right.
that point.
Right. See, I mean, it's a fine line, right, between doing something interesting just from an engineering point of view or doing it because it solves a problem for your customer. So that is the balance. The reason why we even went with the static classification system is because we wanted to get the product out to be able to like in the hands of customers trying to understand, are we really
Yeah.
going to use a customer because like she has the wrong emotion, wrong basic emotion, yes, but like some nuance, as you're saying, some right twitch of the, eyebrow or
Mhm.
something. Okay, I mean, so what if it's like, that's an error? So that is the fine line, between, and that's always the case. Like how much do you overcomplicate
Oh yeah. I mean,
versus
we're engineers. We like to
yes, yes,
complexify.
we
It's our
love
it's our
to.
nature.
Right, right, exactly.
Because we want to not just solve the problem at hand, we want to solve the next 10
Solve it like in the
problems.
perfect way. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and that. So tell me, like, how do they react? Like in the nursing homes, like what's the reactions to RIA, the physical and the software version? Let's
Yeah.
talk about the physical, like first.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I would say the exact opposite of human reaction. We've been like told by neurologists like that it takes about 15 seconds, right? When you meet the person,
Uh-huh.
all the biases that you have, that you make a judgment on the person. But with RIA, it's like it's flipped. right? Because of uncanny valleys in full force, looking at the robot and saying, "Oh my God, it's creepy,"
Yeah,
right?
you
That
have to get over.
so
Let's talk about that, the uncanny valley
that's
problem
your first
in this
reaction,
context. Yeah.
always. I think we're
Uh-huh.
like embracing it right now
So then it
because
takes you a few minutes? Does it take 10, 20 minutes? Like you have to get into the substance of the talking before they get
I
past
would,
it?
yeah, exactly. I would even say seconds. We've
Oh,
all seen it flip, I mean, under 5 minutes. For some people, it just takes a minute or less than that because she draws you in. So that's why I think another episode, you should just interview Ria.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like
We'll
that idea.
we'll
I
set
like
up
that
a
idea.
Zoom call.
Yeah.
Right now, the most of the bots are in customer
I would love
pilots.
to do that. That would be so
Right.
fun. Yeah.
One is ours, that we use for testing. We can bring her onto the show and she'll talk. But, what I was going to say was that, you'll see it like within a minute because like she draws you in, she's like, oh, how's it going? Like, what's happening in Seattle? Oh, it's because like coffee was invented here, this and that. Like, she has all this context. And then like, what do you think? What do you think of that? When she starts pulling you in like that, and then after like a minute, you forget you're talking to a robot.
Yeah. And for the audience's benefit, in case you don't know what the uncanny valley problem is, there's this problem where humans have like this really acute understanding of something that is a human. If it doesn't look anything like a human, no problem. But
We're
if it
good.
looks that, yeah, yeah, we're good. But if it looks a ton like a human, but not exactly like a human, then all of the hairs on our arms stand up and it's something to be feared. That's the physiological primal. And so this is a challenge that animators have faced forever. Like if you look at early Pixar movies, that's why, a lot of times these animations would move to more cartoony characters. But I'm curious, does the acceptance of Ria in one conversation result in like, is the uncanny valley problem gone in the future for that person in all future conversations with Ria, or does it just kind of decay a little bit?
I mean, that's the reason we deliberately keep the form factor to be on wheels because physically, you're never going to mistake her. We can also customize it to if you want to be a guy, we'd be able to make a
Yeah,
mold.
yeah.
That's a guy. But like, that's the first thing physical appearance, always on wheels. So it's not human. And the second thing is we do that, like we add that context in the conversations as your robot companion, like, very, very specific about what her role is. A lot of times people ask, are you able to sense the weather or like smell the roses or something literally? And then she's like, well, my circuit won't do that. She'll make a funny joke about it. We kind of like make sure that like that is also reinforced in conversation.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. On this show, we like to cover three things. One thing is what you do. I feel like we've covered that pretty well.
Yes.
Um, the second thing we like to cover is the how do you do it. I feel like we've covered that pretty well. The third one's a little bit harder. It's should you do what you do? And I think this is probably why if people are still hanging around at this point, they're probably mad at me for not bringing this up sooner. So like, but I think there's a real concern in a way we haven't had before in history where people are genuinely freaked out about bots and AI. And from multiple different angles, from not only from the cartoony Terminator angle, but from the psychosocial angle as well. And I think we were talking about this in Madison,
Yeah.
back in the springtime about how, there's this unintended effect of technology where we all get sort of seduced into adopting a new technology by some simple promises. And then it ends up going south. So we all, wanted our teenage kids to be able to call us if something happened in the car. And next thing they have a cell phone. And then you fast forward 20 years and, the kind folks at Facebook made social apps that have many positive benefits, but they also result in like a massive increase in teen suicide ideation.
Yes.
What are the unintended consequences that you worry about with this bot?
No, it's something we worry about all the time. And by the way, I grew up with Vision and MCU. So my version of a superbot is a real superbot, like Vision from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not the Terminator. But I mean, the responsibility, the fact that we're dealing with healthcare data. I mean, it's like even casual conversation, right? Like the firewalls that we have to put in place. So even before we go there, right? Like step number one, we will always and we will continue to market Rhea as a human aid, never someone that will replace a caregiver, but will aid a caregiver. She does the emotional companion and all that support, and you still want the caregiver for all the very difficult tasks that only a caregiver can do, like handing out meds, being able to like hold on to them to, if they have to go to the
But I
bathroom
mean,
and
isn't it
stuff.
a little weird that we're asking the human to do the practical thing and the robot to do the emotional thing? Because most of us think of it as the opposite. If the human is lonely, give them some humans to talk to, little kids, other elderly folks, teenagers. I think it's in Denmark, somewhere in Scandinavia, where they have
Yeah,
seniors living with college
right.
kids.
Living in
Like,
college kids.
yeah,
Yes.
there's very much
Netherlands.
a human to human model. Why should we at all rely on a synthetic robot to address very human emotional needs? And like, what is it about the way we've thought about this problem?
I
Like,
think
is
we
this just a
burn,
brute necessity because people don't want to do it? Or is
just
there
get
another
burnt
reason?
out. We burn out, right? I think we should do it the robot and not abuse our human relationships because we burn out, right? So I feel like that is the main fundamental difference. I mean, caregiver burnout that we are addressing.
Is
That,
that's the root problem you're addressing? Is
yeah.
that they're just hard to find, they're expensive, they don't want to do it anymore, or they just tucker
I
out?
mean, they're just overworked because of the shortages that we are having because of the aging population and everything else. With all the data that we're seeing, that I mean, you want to avoid caregiver burnout, and so as a result, I mean, we're snappy to each other because of that. It's the same thing. We use technology to help us. We used to use MapQuest, but I love Google Maps
I
to go
joke with
and
my wife, like, I wonder how many marriages Google Maps has saved. I
save.
remember when I
Exactly.
was a kid, my parents would fight all the time
Right.
about
Right.
you turn left here, no turn right there. Now,
Yeah.
if there's a mistake, everybody is like together is mad at Google, which is probably better for the marriage, you
Which is
know.
probably better. But you know what it's like using the technology to help you to, live better lives. When I could afford a coach in my previous job, like I feel like, all the work stress was taken out by the coach. I was actually a better mom, like better daughter, spouse, all of that, just because I wasn't abusing my personal relationships. That is something that I feel profoundly that I think the AI is just another tool that's going to help us live better lives.
And on your dark nights, do you have a different take?
I mean, the biggest thing at all times is if the guardrails will work because we're dealing with emotions and the part of the human experience that's very fragile. So I'm always worried that we will end up giving the wrong direction.
I worry about something a little bit different, right? Like, I feel like the whole next generation of psychosocial dysfunction is going to come from AI human relationships. And I'll give an example. Like, I think it was Ezra Klein. I don't know if you follow him. He's a New York Times correspondent, very interesting guy. And he was talking about when he was a kid, he was not a very socially adept kid. He read a lot, obviously he's a very, very bright thinker and he'd spent a lot of time alone. But out of desperation or out of his, parents' needs, they would kick him out of the house and they would say, "Go find somebody to play with and go play with them." But if he had an option to just sit around and hug an AI stuffed animal, or an AI humanoid robot, he himself said, "I probably wouldn't have gone out and I probably never would have built human relationships." It feels to me like, yes, these things start this way. They start with us servicing a real, genuine need due to a gap in our capitalist system or just general system where something's falling through the cracks. We as technologists want SBIR grants and NIH grants, and we go up and we get them. Those folks are trying to address the societal needs by making the money available. but somehow it leaves that domain. Somehow this system, if it works tremendously well, will not only be used in this sad but necessary scenario, and will at some point start replacing real human relationships. Is that something we care about, or is that okay? Like at some point, are these things getting so good that we're okay with replacing human relationships with AI human relationships? I already see it happening with me. I mean, I spent an inordinate amount of time talking to ChatGPT and Gemini and some of the other models, but mostly, ChatGPT. Like one of my favorite pastimes now, I get in the car, I'm driving home from the mountain or something, and I just plug in ChatGPT and I'm like, I've been thinking about this. It could be a political thing, could be a psychological phenomenon, could be something super nerdy and techy, but there's no one else that I can talk to about anything. It's already replacing my human relationships on some level. But I think I worry about it. I think we're going somewhere new and weird. Like, I don't know where we wind up. This is not to place blame on anyone at your company. I mean, I think this is a responsibility all of us working in AI,
Right, right.
have, and policymakers, frankly. I
Yep,
think it's going to
yep.
radically disrupt society.
I think so. We just have to make, I feel like, a conscious effort to exactly, maybe a question to ask is like, why do you choose ChatGPT to talk to versus like your family or friend?
Nobody I know knows anything about whatever obscure thing I'm suddenly obsessed with. And in fact, I would argue that I've always had obsessions with obscure things, but the friction it took for me to answer those. There's a period when I was in college and grad school that, you have these amazing libraries. I would just live in those libraries. I just run around and find, not even in my subject areas of interest, like in just weird topics, some obscure chemistry library or something. But now I have that in my I don't even have it in my pocket. I have it like I can just talk to it now. And like it's such a huge leap from those days that it feeds my intellectual curiosity to the point where I want to have more and more of those. I don't know if it's always healthy. Maybe I should really just stop and talk about the weather with some random person. I think the place I'm going is, did you ever read Isaac Asimov's stuff with the robot?
Yes.
You know how he had those first principles of robots and
Uh,
not supposed to kill
yes.
people and all that stuff?
Yep.
It
Mhm.
feels to me like maybe what we're talking about is a first principle of a robot that has to encourage human-human contact,
Right.
right? That could be the solution. It could be that Raya says, "Hey, I was just talking to Elaine about such and such. You two should talk." And she's
Yeah.
right over there, like that kind of thing.
No, I mean, that is exactly what we're working on, but with boundaries. That Ria is able to, say that, hey, you should talk to Elaine, not about her health condition
Yeah,
that she talked to
right.
me about. It's like personal, but that she likes this Star Wars character or MCU character that you should talk to her about, something like that.
Yeah.
But going back to being your therapist for just a moment, uh,
Okay. I have a
uh,
robot therapist. I have many robot
yes,
therapists, but I
yes.
probably need a real one. So go
Right.
for it.
I mean, the fact that I spend so much time with like a neurologist or therapist has made me one. Yay, even though my degree is not in that. I, strongly believe that the fact that you're now using ChatGPT to have your weird conversations, has that made you like a better conversationalist with your family?
I would say no. I mean, maybe in the sense that ChatGPT is really good at being super positive and nice, and maybe some of that kind of creeped in, but it feels orthogonal because the subject matter that I interact with ChatGPT is so specific and utterly of non-interest to anyone in my family. But, because I'm talking about machine learning thing or some AI thing or some, music guitar nerd thing.
Something you've touched on is also something that we're doing research on. And like in addition to the just the speech to speech models, can we do a real therapy conversation? Because what we're doing right now is exactly like there's just a lot of positive building people up versus like a real therapist would like go everywhere, right? Like
Oh
would look
yeah, yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is actually a known critique. I think there was a paper that came out a
Yeah,
couple of weeks ago. I
yeah,
don't know if you saw that one.
I
That
did
was,
see that
yeah,
one.
yeah. That was
Yeah.
the one. Yeah, that was. that was a really big deal. And I
Yeah.
talked to my daughter. My daughter's a psychology major in university, and she's like, Dad,
Oh,
the fact
nice.
that that comes as a
She should
shock
be
to
on my
you
advice
is
report then.
shocking. Because she's like, you're such a technophile. And I'm like, I mean, honestly, I spend most of my time like critiquing technology. She's like, not well enough. Like the fact that you even think that you can address these. And I'm like, well, okay, well, we can talk about that in more depth. But I think she's right to a large extent that this is our bias in technology is to
It
be
is.
just to run with something.
Yep.
I can't remember the exact paper, but I think the conclusion was something to the effect of the bots participate in the
Yeah.
delusions of the patients. So if I think I'm Jesus Christ, the bot either plays along in sarcasm or thinking it's a joke. But even once they know I have mental health problems, they should correct, but they don't because
Yeah.
they've been
Right.
trained with this
Right.
massive bias towards
Yeah.
pleasing.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that is what, I mean, that paper is it's kind of research that we're looking into.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
it's a big deal. And in fact, there should be an army of research that comes out of that,
right.
and we should start correcting it. This has been an awesome conversation, Niv. As always, I really love our conversations. I want to end on one last and final question. It's the one I always end on. 5 to 10 years out, you get everything you want, everything that you do works, describe the world. And I always bug people, not just for the unicorn to your left on your left shoulder here with the positive view, but give us the concerns, the negative view as well.
Right, right. Dystopian view is exactly what you said, which is we don't want to, go down a path where we forget how to have human conversations and we're just like comfortable getting just positive information, from a bot. So that is the dystopian view. But the positive unicorn and rainbows view, AI like bots, empathy bots like Ria remind us of being more empathetic and having like richer experiences with other humans. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome talking. Thanks so much.
all right, Dave, you take care and thank you.
That's all for this episode. I'm Dhillon, your host, saying check back soon for your next AI injection. In the meantime, if you need help injecting AI into your business or project, reach out to us at xionyx.com. That's XYONIX.com. Whether it's text, audio, video, or other business data, we help all kinds of organizations like yours automatically find and operationalize transformative insight.